The Amazing Casuals are back for the Amazing Race 31 episodes 5 and 6 recap. Alexa is joining us again for the first time since I believe episode 1 or 2. It's been a while since she's been here, but all three of us are together. I think so.
It was episode 1. I had to, right before this, I actually had to check out the names and see who got, I guess not voted out, who lost. And I disappeared for 3 weeks and 2 Survivor teams are gone. What the hell is that?
That's what happens. That's what happens when they didn't play the Amazing Race first. Although this week we saw our most Survivor-y type thing, huh? In terms of the head-to-head.
Yeah, in like a puzzle like that.
Yeah, and I feel like Will's going to have millions of things to say about this head-to-head because this is the first time I've ever seen a head-to-head. So this is brand new to me. And I thought it was stupid, but Will, I want to hear what you have to say because you're our challenge guy.
I like the head-to-head. I mean, I don't want to see it every episode, but as a means to have someone like come back or someone fall from the lead, I think it's exciting. And obviously the team that loses, they're going to have an advantage because they've seen it and they've done it already. So it's not like, okay, you're just going to throw a random team in with a random team. It's like, I think the advantage that you get isn't too much. It's not insurmountable for the other team. Like any team could have easily come in there and they're okay, I know how to do something like this, beating the team that had already tried it, especially when these teams are switching out people, which I was surprised by. We saw Brett and Chris switch. We saw, I think Leo and Jamal switch. Overall, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. This is very similar to something called the Tower of Hanoi, which you might have seen in Survivor South Pacific with Ozzy and Coach. I think that was the opening challenge of that season at Redemption Arena or whatever. And also, if you've seen Planet of the Apes, the new one, with James Franco, the
Survivor South Pacific and the new Planet of the Apes. If you are well versed in either of those, you will understand this reference.
Well, just to make Will not sound stupid, I'll save him as the Planet of the Apes expert here. It was Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So if you're thinking he means the newest one, it's not the newest. He means the first one of the new franchise. First one of the new franchise.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure. I just don't want you to sound bad, Will. I know.
How many Planet of the Apes are there as someone who is admittedly not an expert on
There are 9 Planet of the Apes movies, but the Tim Burton one shouldn't count. So really there's 8.
9?
Yeah, well, the originals,
like Star Wars level.
The originals, they were just pounding them out. If you guys want to have joy in your life,
it went for the new one. It went Rise, then Dawn, then War.
Yeah, and if you guys want to have
they could have switched Dawn and War's titles. I think I remember having that opinion after watching both of them.
Well, yeah, because the second one's like literally a war,
right? And the third one's like the Dawn.
But if you want to do yourself a favor, go watch the 4th and 5th one from the original series. It is a true treat to the eyes, and you will not feel stupid at all afterwards. Definitely go watch them. Conquest and Battle; those are the 2.
Ooh, and then the first one, we're really getting off topic quickly here, but the first one is also really interesting because you think it's like this big sci-fi adventure movie, and it's pretty much like a courtroom drama. It's literally about like morality. It's like a philosophical argument.
There it is.
The first Planet of the Apes ever. Fun fact for anybody listening. I have a poster of the Planet of the Apes, the original one, in my bedroom. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Love it. It's amazing. Charlton Heston doesn't overact at all once in the entire movie. And an ape literally looks at him and says, "You're so damn ugly." And to me, that is just gold.
Okay, so before we go back to talking about The Amazing Race, which we're also quite well versed in, it's about to be pouring rain for the rest of the night. What is the one Planet of the Apes I should watch? Because I was going to watch
the original one. You should watch
which is what?
It's just called Planet of the Apes.
I love Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
I think if you want, it depends what you want to watch, Alex. I mean, one of them is a 1969 movie that definitely is dated, but it's like a really like cool idea and has like one of the best twist endings of all time that you probably already know, but that doesn't matter.
No, I don't know anything.
Oh, okay. And then the other one, Rise is just like a really good, like that was like the surprise movie of all time. Like that was not supposed to make any money. It ended up being like a huge box office hit.
Rise was awesome movie.
Awesome movie. Yeah, it is. All three of the new ones are great.
And again, this is not Tower of Hanoi. This is more like the one they did here because they didn't have different sizes of the drums. You could put any size drum on top of another. They were all the same except for the bottom one that you wouldn't move. So this is more similar to a board game called Dr. Eureka, in which you have like laboratory tubes with balls, and you need to get them in a certain position. Yeah, I loved it though. I love the head-to-head. Trying to bring it back to Amazing Race.
I admittedly did not watch while I was on hiatus. Was this the first head-to-head of this season?
The first one that they actually aired. They didn't actually.
Oh.
Supposedly, like, there was a head-to-head when Corinne and Eliza got eliminated, and that's why they came in so close to Rachel and Alyssa. But they didn't air it, I guess, because like they didn't have time, and I guess it was like badminton. It wasn't anything like. It was weird.
It was badminton.
So yeah, I guess this one they wanted to keep in because it made like a little bit more sense with the theme and everything. And like Will was saying, this one's different than what I'm used to seeing. Well, because I'm used to seeing the one where like you can only have like maybe 4 on one. You have to get like all the same color, but there's not already a base color for you. And this one had a base color for you. So it was telling you have to put the yellows over here. You have to put the reds over here or whatever it was. Whereas normally when this challenge is done, or maybe not even as a challenge, just as a puzzle, you see it as you have like no guideline at the bottom. It's just get all of yours in the right spot.
Well, if it depends on what it is. I think, Phil, you had tried when I had the Dr. Eureka board game because I
remember that.
Pitched something very similar to this to the Survivor. Pretty much the same thing, but with like big cylinders that you'd have to pour, like those canvas balls into. Mm-hmm. And the bottom ball would always stay the same because there just wasn't enough room to pour it. And that's essentially what they did. The bottom drum was the same the whole time.
Yeah. I have my reasons why I disliked this challenge, but Alexa, first, why don't you say if you liked it or did not like it?
I did like it. I kind of like those challenges where you have to take a step back and like I'm not describing this particularly well, but like it looked super easy when I was first staring at it, but then watching them actually go through it, I was like, this would take me hours. So I liked it, and I'd never seen a head-to-head before, so it was cool watching them actually go at it. But I also have nothing to compare it to. So Phil, why did you not like it?
Here's what I'll say too. Before that, Will, you were saying you were surprised people switched. I'm not, because when people are moving them, all their partner was doing was watching them. And like being able to say like, oh, they made the wrong move there. And now I've seen it. And they've just been studying it the entire time. So I'm not surprised people change because you're getting like a wider perspective. The reason I didn't like this is because the name of the show is The Amazing Race, right? Everything cool that happened before this becomes not nearly as important because of this challenge. And like, was this fun to watch? Yeah, this was fun to watch. I loved Phil Kehogan trying to do his best Jeff Probst and completely failing. No offense, Phil, but he's won so many more Emmys than Jeff. And after seeing that, I was like, man, give Jeff.
Has he really?
Yeah. But beside that point, I just think like you did all of these great challenges and everything. And how far behind are Janelle and Brittany? I mean, Janelle and Brittany were so far behind, and now they're getting to compete against Rachel and Alyssa. And like, I just feel like when it's The Amazing Race, it should be these big epic things that are determining it, or at least like these big challenges that take up a lot of time, not really just like it's now all literally going to come down to a game at the end. And like, if you lose to just Janelle and Brittany, you're out, even though you might've beaten them by an hour and a half in what is a race around the world.
Right. I get it sounds like the point of a race is to get there first.
Yeah.
So I guess like at its core, yeah, I get that.
Will?
Yeah, but I'm going to disagree with you here. I agree a little bit that like, okay, an hour and a half gap, that's huge. And it's kind of just lucky though that they found themselves in this situation, but they still end up going home, and your placement is very important here. Mm-hmm. Like if you get there first, for you to get eliminated, you're going to have to fail at this 7 times in a row. Like, it's not going to screw over anyone who has a huge lead, even though it is possible, and that could very well be something that's super exciting. And like this huge fall from grace that would totally be earned because they failed that many times in a row. So that's what I really like about it. The second part is you were saying that it should be a race and some of these big stunts. I find that these ending stunts are some of the least interesting parts of the episode. We see in the first episode, they do this amazing zip line all the way from this huge building down. What happened there? The teams get there, they have to wait, they go one at a time, there's no interaction, there's no passing each other. It's literally, once you're there, your position for the race is over, and it has zero meaning on the actual race. So whereas that's more visual and more exciting, you're not racing, you're not doing anything, you're just doing some big set piece so they can run advertisements, and it literally has zero influence on the placement of the game. So I'd much, much, much rather see a head-to-head where you have to use your brain, you have to use teamwork, communication, your placement completely matters, because like Janelle and Brittany, they only get one try. and you know you're going to be against someone else who has attempted it already. So I think the fairness level is really, really nice, and there's meaning to it. The ends of these episodes have almost no meaning because you just do some task that you have to wait in line for. This is why I just really like this.
Yeah, to Will's point, I think it does add some suspense. Like it gives it a little more something instead of just like it's so obvious like when someone gets to their checkpoint.
I mean, because we knew Janelle and Brittany were going to lose this entire time, because once Janelle was running around looking for a Rolex watch, we knew that she was not going to get through this. But I just think like, well, I understand what you're saying, but they in the note or whatever they got to go to the end, it said whoever gets to the roof first, that's the order that you will come into the mat. Like they said, like there's no passing after that. So
which
really
makes it.
This zip line is just visual, and it's dumb, and it's like, I guess it's like a cool thing because it says like, look, we're zip lining, but like I agree with you, it's dumb. I just have a problem that like, and I do agree that it's fair. I do think that it's fair because the teams other than Victor, who had a really good chance, and also like all Brittany had to do was be better at it than Rachel, because Rachel was struggling hard, and like it took those last two pairs a really long time to do that last one. But other than those two, like really the team who was on their second try was doing a great job. I just feel that like in a race like this, by doing that, like normally it's closer. So I guess I'm normally going to be more okay with it. But in this situation, because Janelle and Brittany were so far behind, I just felt it's like, damn, they're getting like an hour and a half catch up right now. That's really crazy. And I guess in like a normal leg on the leg before that, it was very close.
An hour and a half catch up.
Yeah, but at the end of it, I feel like at the end of the race, I want
about
like,
hour and a half catch-ups.
Then what was the whole point of the entire race, though? Like, you know what I'm saying?
What was the entire point of the first episode we watched?
No, I agree.
First episode was like visually super cool.
If you have a problem with an hour and a half of a catch-up, then you have to have a problem with literally every single episode this season. Because this, again, we haven't even brought this up yet, and people don't want to hear it probably. And Alexa, I don't know if you've listened to our prior podcast, but for me, a really big issue is that the team that comes in first and the team that comes in last or second to last, actually last now twice, they all start at the same place. There's no advantage. And yeah, sure, the person that comes in last the team that comes in last has to do a speed bump. But again, the speed bump was completely weak. It was in the same location as the detour. So it really is not enough of a punishment to lose an entire leg. So if I'm going to pick my catch-ups here, an hour and a half where you have to then do a head-to-head thing against a team that's already had experience doing it, I think that's more fair than coming in 6 hours behind a team and then just starting at the same place.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I just think that by doing this at the end of a leg, you're making it so that everything that happened before that feels less important than what you're doing at the very end. Whereas by doing it at the beginning of a leg, it's like, okay, now we have the entire day to still outrace these people. Like if the first challenge was badminton, if you just suck at badminton, you lose. And you could have had an entire, like at least this one was a puzzle, so I was okay with it. You could have had an entire incredible race. And then you just aren't athletic, you're not good at badminton, and you lose to a team and you could have had a 4-hour lead on them.
I mean,
at least this one, like, if I forget which you guys made the point, but this one at least was like culturally relevant and kind of like fit with the episode. Like now I understand why they didn't air badminton, because why would they even do that? Is that normal? Do they ever just have like volleyball as the or like bocce? Like that just seems kind of odd.
Yeah, I just think that whatever these head-to-heads are, it's going to be something like this where you can you get an advantage every time you do it, and your placement is very important. First place, again, you're going to have to lose 7 times in a row. If you get third place, you're going to have to lose like 4 or 5. Like it's still, I really think your placement still matters. And if you were to do something like this at the beginning, I think there's so much reset time where they have to, okay, 2 teams do the puzzle, or 1 team, you're off to the races, and then they have to reset the thing. They have to walk the next team through it, stop down. You can't do this at the start, or the teams that are finishing are going to have such a big lead. Whoever comes in last at the beginning and ahead will lose. And that's why they're at the end, because that's the whole point. You get eliminated if you can't do it.
I guess what I'm trying to make more of the point of it. I guess it's not so much with this one. It was just because Janelle and Brittany were so far behind. Look, if they would have beaten Alyssa and Rachel, nobody would have cheered harder than I would have. But I guess
I like that. I like that Rachel and Alyssa, especially because they just got like a free pass.
They got a free pass.
Eliminated.
Oh, I agree.
I was hoping so badly for Janelle and Brittany to come back and win, and I would have been okay with it because, look, head to head, it's going to happen. It's not every episode. This isn't the standard format for the race, but I do think it's an interesting wrinkle, and I think it has. I don't think it's that unfair as you're saying.
I don't think it's incredibly unfair. I guess what I'm saying is a thing like badminton, like this is a puzzle. People can do puzzles, and if you can't do a puzzle, like I don't have a problem with you being eliminated. But if it literally comes down to like a physical, just like you don't have the physical ability, like
well, we'll see.
Like, but imagine
when we get there.
But they said it was badminton, so like what I'm trying to say is like imagine if there was something like shooting a basketball, and Alexa comes in first place with whoever her teammate is, but neither one of them, neither one of them can shoot a basket, and every other team behind them can shoot a basket. They could have just dominated the entire leg. They could have done everything right in the entire country, done the detour the best, done the roadblock the best, and then just like, I'm not athletically gifted enough to do this better than anybody else, so we are now eliminated.
And but to Phil's point, if I'm doing that at the beginning, then I still have a chance to catch up at the end. Like if we put that head-to-head first, and that's the first thing I do, and I completely suck, at least I'm like, okay, I have the rest of the day to try to catch up.
Especially if they're going to even them out pretty much. But if they're going to even them out pretty much every single time anyway, Will, why wouldn't you like maybe start them at a time where they can actually do something like in the morning? You know what I'm saying? Start them at a time where they're not going to have to wait, or where they could maybe get on a different plane or something exciting like that. Start them like that and then do a head-to-head so that maybe you start later, because they're evening these teams up every single time at the beginning anyway. So it's like,
but
here we go.
Like I said, I think you're going to have if you come in last or second to last in a head-to-head at the start of the race, you're going to be so far behind. Like I said, because it's one-on-one matchups, all of these are carefully like scheduled and planned. They stop down. They have to make sure the rules are clear. That team that finishes, it's not like you're just waiting in line and circling through like a normal part of the leg. Mm-hmm. So I just don't think it's possible to put at the beginning. In addition, I think Phil, you're like complaining or like having a problem with something that we didn't even see, that you have yet to see. Have you yet to see a head-to-head where it's a physical task that someone might just be impossible for them?
Well, I guess really like they didn't air the badminton one, so I don't actually know what place teams came in. So maybe teams came in different placement than how they came out. So I don't know. I mean, they didn't show it.
Yeah, I can't imagine they're going to make it something like football or like playing basketball. Like I would like think that they're going like badminton is something that everyone is objectively okay at. I would say
you can be really good at badminton,
or just something random.
Like, I feel
just like an amazing race.
You can be really good at badminton, but I don't think you can be really bad at badminton.
Badminton.
On that note.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's get off the head-to-head and let's talk about. I want to talk about the speed bump before we talk about the first episode. Just because I thought there's just one thing that I thought was interesting about this.
I would not let them do my laundry. Those clothes are probably still drying.
Oh yeah,
I did not wring them out.
They were soaking wet.
Yeah.
But the main thing I wanted to say is Phil literally points up and says, "Good luck finding a place to put them," and they had their own clothesline. So I was like, well, there goes like the whole point of that. Like I was like, oh, that could be really cool. Like they have to hunt for like a spot to put these clothes. And it was just like, nope, they have their own clothesline.
We designated a spot just for you.
Speed bumps are just dumb. Like I hate them. I hate the non-elimination legs. It makes a completely episode worthless. I hate them.
I thought that was
dumb. I wish Rachel would have gotten eliminated. Like I was liking her a lot, and then Phil said, "I've seen enough of her." Like Phil had seen her on other.
I'd seen her twice, and she does exactly the same thing every time.
And I was like, "Hey, no, I like her." And then by the time the first episode had ended, I had seen enough. I was like, this is a good ending. I like how much she's crying. I like how much she cares. But I kind of felt it was going to be an elimination or non-elimination leg just because it was so obvious that Rachel and Alyssa were going home, and it was a 2 hour. They were airing them back to back, and they might have already known that. while filming.
That's actually not true, Will. I just know this because they moved it up because it was supposed to be $1 Million Mile after Survivor, and they actually moved up the Amazing Race premiere date because $1 Million Mile wasn't successful. So they changed the date on $1 Million Mile, like what day of the week they were going to shoot it. So they didn't know that coming into this. I think this is kind of like the Wentworth David thing. Like, you don't know that your two of the biggest fan favorites are going to go out the same week. Also, whose phone is on?
That's me. Sorry.
Well, you should turn that off.
Turn that off. Have some respect.
Well, it's also coming through my computer. That's the worst part.
Well, mute it.
So that sound comes through your computer?
But then I can't hear you.
Mute the. I have YouTube muted right now, and I still have our video on behind it.
That's why your internet's always so bad. You watch the video.
Yeah, keep it
live chat. Are you kidding?
Yeah, but you can pause the video and then live chat.
No, the video is paused. I'm just saying.
That would be psychotic.
Yeah, okay. I was like, that's probably why.
Speaking of ridiculous, can we talk about the Rolex situation with the watch that wasn't a watch?
Why did everybody else get it right away and she couldn't figure it out? That's what I don't understand. Like, why could Janelle not figure it out?
I don't know what were they given, because
they were given like a list of ingredients or something, or like a list of things to purchase.
Yeah, that wasn't until you went
to the Rolex stand. Maybe that's what it said, because you had to go to the stand, get the ingredients. I was just so confused. Like, what were her instructions? Because if it's like, go buy a Rolex, that's not what the task was.
So
to make a Rolex.
The Wikipedia page says, in this leg's roadblock, one team member had to find a vendor who would give them a shopping list to then purchase ingredients to properly prepare a Rolex. So maybe she thought she was supposed to go to a watch vendor instead of just like an undisclosed vendor. I think it
probably said go to a Rolex vendor, and that's it. Just they were hoping someone would only think of the watch, which
she had to have not read the full clue, man.
I don't know
because everybody else got it right away.
I would hope she would have looked at it a second time. How long was she looking?
Yeah, that's what I think. If she hadn't read the full clue and had spent 20 minutes and couldn't find it, she's like, all right, let me read this thing. And she still couldn't do it. Like, she would have reread it. I really think it just said find the Rolex stand.
I think,
or Rolex stand.
Whoever got that
figured it out, because they're like, oh, it's literally right here.
Whoever got there first, read the whole clue. And I think that we should probably re-listen to that at some point, just because I think they read the entire clue, and it was like, oh, and then I think that's why Victor was like, oh, roll eggs, get it, got it, cool, good, moving on. So I don't know. I felt bad for Janelle, but she's running around, and also Rachel was there while Janelle was running around, and she was so lost in that market that she didn't even notice that Rachel was doing something. That's how lost Janelle got.
Yeah, and my question here is, how much can your teammate help you? Because seems like
I think it was none at all. Because
they can't say anything.
Nothing.
They can't be get over it.
You can't say anything. No. Same thing. Chris couldn't tell Brett to grab the thing on Mount Fuji.
It was like a
Gotcha.
I think it was in one of her confessionals. She was like, I know what's going on, and like she knew, and I think she's not allowed to even communicate.
I wonder if they'd give them a penalty, because clearly how lost Janelle was. You're about to lose. And I wonder if Brittany was just it's right there.
And then, they shock me, whatever.
Would they get an hour penalty or something like that? I don't know how that would work.
Did they do that? Yeah. What's the?
Because otherwise, I would have been telling Janelle
a 10-hour penalty, and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, seriously, because it was a head-to-head leg.
Yeah, so if you break, right. Do people ever break rules like that? Within the game rules?
I don't know.
I mean, especially this episode, they could have been like, all right, you know what? They're going to get last anyway. Hey, it's that stand right there.
Oh, here we go. In the chat, it says you get a penalty if you help someone, even accidentally. You get a 30-minute penalty. I would have taken a 30-minute penalty because
hell yeah.
Because Janelle was, by the time you take that 30-minute penalty, maybe Janelle would have been back to you in those 30 minutes to realize that she was making a mistake.
30 minutes is a lot, though, especially if you're already in last place.
I would have assumed it'd be 2 hours. So 30
minutes
there in
like fifth place, though. They got there so they were ahead of Rachel and Alyssa by a lot, and it's by the time you decide to say I want to help, that's when I feel like by the time you realize that it's too late, you're like, well, damn, now 30 minutes is really going to kill us. Anyway, do we want to go through both episodes? Yeah. Just go take it from the start.
Yeah, I feel like we worked super backwards.
Well, I think the first episode I really liked. I thought Dubai was a cool location. I haven't seen a season with Dubai, or if I have, I forgot. What would you have done I'm opening this to both of you. What roadblock would you have done? And also, how surprised were you that what fall was? So in Dubai, it was either fall where you could climb up and jump, or it was find where you had it was called fall or find. I know it was called fall or find.
Oh,
100%. It's called fall or find. Either you had to go up there and you were supposed to parachute out, and that's what the clue said, or you had to go find dinosaur eggs in this park. What would you have done?
Well, I'm pretty decisive in mine. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
I have a debilitating fear of heights. So, and I've always wanted to wear one of those blow up dinosaur costumes. So it's pretty obvious to me that I would have gone with the find.
I agree. I would have done the same thing. I mean, I'm terrified of heights.
I don't even like being like really watch that. I had to like look away.
I don't like being on like the 5th floor of a building. So, yeah. Will?
My first thought was like, if I'm running this race, I think you have to do jump just because it's quicker. But if I were actually doing it, I would do the egg thing. Also,
see what I thought was interesting is that they all assumed that you were going to parachute off the top of that building, right? They all thought we're going to jump off
because that's like how he said it.
Yeah, but it's not a roadblock; it's a detour. So you're going to tell me that they are prepared to have 14 people jump off that building as opposed to just one?
In my initial reaction, and this didn't really come up, which I think would be interesting. It's like you can do this, you can jump off the building. It's going to be scary as hell. You're jumping off like one of the tallest buildings in the world.
I think it is the tallest.
I believe
it is the tallest. Like that is like, I don't even care if you don't have a fear of heights. Like I don't have a bad fear of heights. That would still like that's, it's like in Australia where you had to jump off the cliff. Like that, it's part of it. Like is that it's scary. That's the challenge. And if you overcome it, then you have an advantage because you were able to get it done quickly. So it rewards teams that don't have a fear of heights. Now that wasn't the challenge, but I thought that was interesting where it's like you can do some menial task, go run around and collect like dinosaur eggs, or if you have the balls, just jump off a building and like you'll get it done way faster. I thought that would be an interesting choice. And it's like how much do you really want $1 million? Like even if you're afraid of heights, you can jump and it take 10 minutes.
And that's what I started thinking. Yeah.
The reason for Rachel and Alyssa, again, they like came across this decision at such a wrong time where they're like, they assumed, okay, everyone, you can only do 2 at a time jumping. So let's not do that. Okay. Well, how long can jumping take? Again, this is if we're assuming that it's the parachute thing. If you're actually going to jump off the building, and then they were like, their cab sucked. Their taxi sucked. They were lost. They finally get to the dinosaur park and then are like, you know what? There's too many people here. Let's go jump. That would be super quick. I mean, even if they even told themselves it's going to be quick after they caught up, we're already at the dinosaur park. There were other people putting their suits on right there. They were in it. They weren't even in last technically because some of the other teams didn't have their suits on yet. Mm-hmm. So I think that was a terrible, terrible decision. And if that was their rationale, nothing had changed. Just because you see other teams like jumping is quick no matter what. Even if you have 6 teams, if 2 people jump off, what's it going to take? Like 20 seconds? I mean,
and this goes back to, I think it was our conversation 2 weeks ago, Will, 1 episode ago, but it was when Rachel and Alyssa didn't change. At the end, they had their detour and they didn't change. And Rachel was like, we need to change. And Alyssa wouldn't do it. This is one where I would have definitely put up more of a fight. Like if I was Alyssa and been like, no, that makes no sense. Because I completely agree with you. It doesn't make any sense. You were just basically in like the worst taxi cab of,
as far as I've seen on The Amazing Race, that was the worst taxi driver we've seen. And you just survived that and are now at a position where other teams are like, you're right there. You're right in it.
That taxi ride reminded me, I think the only other time I podcasted with you guys, Phil, you were saying that sometimes you're iffy on this show because of situations like that. And that was so incredibly frustrating to watch. So I now completely understand like why people can't really get behind that because it wasn't fair. Like they did nothing wrong.
And
I mean, they did when they didn't. But the one I was complaining about, Alexa, like teams literally just followed the other teams. So that was
that's
just,
true.
That's
also
aggravating.
Shitty.
Yeah.
Didn't they take the same taxi driver to the building then? Like,
because they tell everybody to wait. But also, did they take the same taxi? Because they were having trouble getting to the frame. They weren't having trouble after the frame. They're having trouble getting to the frame. So I don't know if they were still having trouble after that. But when they were traveling to the frame, that's when they had the terrible taxi driver and they ended up going from first to last. After that, they might have had a different taxi driver going to the next place.
Yeah, it's possible. Do you know what the frame looks like?
It looks like a frame.
Yeah, it's a frame.
Spoiler alert.
Whoa, it looks like a frame. It's like a picture frame.
How many times did they say that on this episode?
It was like 20 times. Everyone's like, whoa, it's a frame. It's like,
it's a frame.
Yes, it is a frame.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was another one. It's like they went up there, they just got up there, they grabbed the thing, and it was like, all right, now we're gonna go do the detour. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's cool to show that.
That one was at least cool because that's such a cool looking building.
It's a cool looking building.
What was really dumb was go hang out with these people and their luxury cars and drink tea.
I love eating tea.
Yeah.
Like, it was just so bizarre, and they get there and then they're like, oh yeah, the clues are in the car. And it's like, I wonder if there was a point where they were required to say when the clue, like, I'm thinking, okay, they're told when someone bites into a date, now reveal that the clues are in the car, or once they have a sip of tea or something. Because then other teams were getting there by themselves. Is it just on one of those dudes to be like, you know what? Yeah, sure, we'll tell them now. Or, well, you know what? Let's chat with them for 3 hours or a half hour or whatever.
So yeah, I didn't love that.
That was pretty dumb.
The frame was definitely cooler than that. I agree with.
And it looked like a frame.
It did.
Just it was a frame. Are we all on the same page?
A frame.
Okay, got it.
Frame. But I did think that detour was a lot harder. The jumping one was a lot harder than the dinosaur egg one. And anybody, like, because of my fear of heights, I would have definitely done the dinosaur egg one, and it would have been the right choice because that other one was a pain. Like, they didn't know there was going to be a test. I mean, Leo and Jamal, why could they not figure out? It literally said on your signal thing, like whatever the name of that thing was, it said how many antennas are sticking up off it. And they thought it was off the building or the satellite. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, that's the thing. It wasn't just the jump. Like, you had to do that whole like satellite test too.
Yeah, which is not easy.
No, everyone got it wrong.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of this one? I thought it was like such a letdown.
It's kind of like almost a waste because you're like, why did they have to go all the way up to the top floor of the tallest building to do this? But I also like it because there are a lot of things on the Amazing Race where it's like, just jump or just go up here and slide and zip line down or something like that. And so I think that this was kind of interesting because it was like, you're throwing teams off now to being like, wow, there could be something like this that like, it's not as easy as we thought. Because Rachel's logic, I will say this though, Will, even though I don't think Rachel made the right decision, her logic, knowing how the Amazing Race works and knowing how like tedious something like collecting 5 dinosaur eggs and finding the nest could be, her logic of like, let's just jump was right, but it was too late.
But if that thought crosses her, like, they need to have that decision on their initial, because that was my initial thought. Jumping is going to take no time at all. Who cares if there's a 2 team at a time rule? Like, that doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't think that has like any influence if you're thinking what you think it is.
Yeah.
And they thought it was obviously them jumping off a building.
But I did like that this. I actually like that this wasn't just jumping off a building because it's like now you have to think about these detours a little bit more in depth because it's
I like how they fool them. I just think I was really excited to see an awesome stunt, and then we're watching people play video games.
Well, go watch the end of the whatever season it is that Connor wins. Go watch the end of that season, Will.
Well, now I'm not going to watch it. Now I know who wins.
Well, you don't know. He plays like 8 seasons, but I'll tell you which one to watch.
Yeah, I feel like this episode and like this situation that we're talking about, this was a very like aesthetically pleasing episode. And I think that's what they wanted to run with because you have like the coolest looking building and the tallest building in the world. And so when he said like, they're going to jump off the Burj Khalifa, I was like, how? Like,
I was like, and how did they get access to, like, imagine
like, how is that legal?
Trying
like,
to do that. Yeah, exactly. There's like, so many things.
I don't know how. I don't think anyone's ever jumped off of it, but the only like other situation I can think of is in that Mission Impossible movie when Tom Cruise like actually climbed up the side of that, but that was Tom Cruise in a Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah, I agree because the way it's shaped too, it's not like the Empire State Building where like the Empire State Building gets wider at the bottom, but there's also like you can also go out. Like this one just keeps getting wider like the entire way down. There's so many different platforms to it.
Yeah, I was like, dude, you have to be like auzed to jump off this thing. Like, you can't just be a nobody.
And that's why I was so excited. I was like, wow, they actually figured this out. And they had the whole skydive person in their suit. Like, all right, we're doing it.
They really sold it.
I mean, they had us going, they had them going. So, I mean, I did like that part of it. I just like the whole simulation thing was like kind of whatever.
And I think that's why it also felt like a disappointment, because we thought that was going to happen.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's still like a cool idea. It's just like we thought that we were going to see wild. But who ends up leaving this detour in first place? None other than the only survivor team left, Chris and Brett. And then they go to this roadblock, and I actually really like this roadblock. Thought this was a good idea.
This was I think my favorite one they've done this season.
I thought it was awesome.
Have you guys ever been to one of these?
No.
I've been to two, and they're super weird, but really fun. And that was like the best example of like how those go.
I thought it was great too, because Brett, like, okay, so first of all, like, I love Becca.
Hitting on dudes.
Becca and Floyd are my favorite team that aren't Survivor related. Like, I love Becca and Floyd. They're so much fun. Floyd does, like, when Floyd gets into it, Floyd gets into it. Floyd and Becca are a perfect, amazing race team because they're really fun. Even if they don't win, they're going to be super into it. They're going to be a really good time. There's a reason why Brett played Survivor, not the Amazing Race first time. Brett goes in there and he's just standing there looking at people. And it's like, Brett, you need to like try to figure out who's dancing the way you're dancing or get them to dance like you. And he's just standing there. And I love Chris's narration of just like, he's finding the cute guys. Brett's just finding the cute guys.
He's not here to win.
That's it. And I thought that was so funny, but I thought this was a great roadblock. And like, once again, like Becca and Floyd, they just kill these music related type things. Cause I thought like, this is their expertise. And I feel like the Amazing Race fits into their expertise a lot more than it's ever going to fit into like Brett and Chris, who later in the episode, Chris says, we like grunt work. Like, that's not the Amazing Race.
He says grunting.
Yeah, exactly. Like lifting Brett up on his back. But Will, so you said you loved it. Let's hear.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is super unique because it's, yeah, like it is kind of musical or performance based a little bit, but it's not like you have to go sing karaoke or memorize a dance. This is a really unique challenge. It's a really unique skill. You have to identify someone listening to the same music as you are just by their body movement. Like it's really creative, and I think it would have been really fun to try. I would have loved to try this out. I want to say I would have gotten to my first try. I think I would have really been good at this. I would have used a little bit of Tyler's approach where you start like building the rhythm with somebody. And if they're not listening to the same song as you, all right, on to the next person. Yeah. And then just find someone who, if they can be in rhythm with, because they're not going to pick songs that have the same beats. We even heard like one was a pretty down tempo song. One was
that was the first person.
Yeah, these are very clearly be wanting to dance differently than the rest.
Exactly. Yeah, they weren't going to make it super difficult. So I really, really like this one. Just really creative and fun challenge.
I will say, as somebody who has seen Will dance like numerous times, no matter what the beat is to a song, Will just kind of does that thing where like he has to like look back at you and like move his shoulders. Yeah, but he has to like look back. You'd be like, "This is great, love this," and like it doesn't matter. Like it could be rap. It could be like it could be like the slowest music ever. It could be like electronica. He doesn't care. Will just does the same, like, yeah. And he's for some reason, even when we're inside, he's always imagining he has sunglasses and a backwards hat on. Like, just get this image in your head of what it's going to be further from the truth.
To be fair, Will, before we went live, you did put sunglasses on, and I believe you're indoors.
See, this is what I'm saying. And he's probably got music getting ready to play, so he can just do his little like shoulder sway thing. But I do agree though. Like,
I got to defend myself here. I have so much variance. I would not do that same thing over and over. I completely adjust to whatever is playing, whatever the atmosphere.
I don't know if I could ever be in the same room as you guys while you're both dancing. I think I would just be so uncomfortable that I'd have to immediately leave.
I wish I could, honestly, I wish I could do this. I wish I could attempt this challenge. I would prove you guys so wrong. I would get in on my first try.
I would imagine you being like Colin was. You would just be up there dancing away like on your own. Like I could see you having a good time, but you would still be doing just like the shoulder sway. That's it. 100%. Like imagine, like I don't know. I have so many different like images of Will. Like I imagine you at a football game doing that dance. I imagine you when we used to go to Reggie Watts doing the exact same dance. Yeah, there's the sunglasses.
There they are. Where's the backwards hat now?
Oh, he's got it there. There's no way he doesn't.
It's like sitting right in front of the
camera. But I thought
that's my front where it's at.
Yeah. Oh, now you're gonna make Alexa confused. Don't do this.
I'm the most confused.
And there goes Will's phone. I thought I did. I think that this was a really enjoyable one. It was different and it was fun and like, just to see the different ways. And Chris and Brett, for as bad as Brett seemed like he was doing, they almost beat Becca and Floyd. They were right behind. I mean, they were in the same elevator as Becca and Floyd going up there. It's just the one thing Brett's got to do before he ever goes on The Amazing Race again is just start doing sprints. He's just got to start doing because I feel like Chris being like an ex-college athlete and like I think it was in the second episode when they all come running out of the airport door, like wherever Chris is running, I'm like, I wouldn't want to stand in front of him. Like he would destroy, like that's like a linebacker coming at you. I don't know what position he played, but he would wreck you. And he's got like the endurance still and he's running around. And that entire episode, it's just, come on, Brett, come on, Brett, come on, Brett, come on, Brett.
Hurry up.
It was nonstop. I felt bad for Brett. And I love that we got a lot of them ribbing each other in the in their little confessionals, especially when they're going up the tower and Chris was running and I couldn't hear him because he was huffing so loud. But like, I do think like poor Brett is just not in the shape to be sprinting around in circles over and over and over and over again. But that's all I got on that. They were close. They almost had Becca and Floyd. They were right there. And everybody seems like they get along with Becca and Floyd too. So I wonder when there's going to be another U-turn coming up because I don't think Becca and Floyd, despite the fact that they're doing really well, are ever getting U-turn.
That was something I was surprised by. We had this back-to-back episode. We've only seen one U-turn this whole season. I was really I was expecting one here, so I was surprised.
Yeah, I thought we would have seen one in this leg too, especially with the speed bump, because I think that a lot of times, like when they do these speed bump legs, that seems to be when there's U-turns as well, to kind of try to keep it even for the team that's doing the speed bump and a team that's getting U-turn. But yeah, we didn't see one at all. The second one I didn't think was as cool, although I did think it was cool that they went to Uganda just because.
I thought I like the second one better. I think overall.
Really? See, I think the second one was different. Like Alexa was saying, it was very aesthetic. The first one and the second one wasn't. I just think like the roadblock for the first one was better. Thought the detour, the way they tricked him out, was cool. Like I liked that. So
see, like this, my thinking is like, okay, the car thing was really odd. I mean, I didn't dislike it, but it's just like kind of weird. So their first task was to just go somewhere and get a clue. From there, their task is again go somewhere, get a clue, not do anything. Again, they're just going somewhere. And then both of these detours, I just thought were very like the dinosaur thing was funny for a little bit, but after you see people running around the dinosaur suit, that's all you're gonna get. Like it was very samey. It was like they're just running around to get eggs. You couldn't really. There wasn't much that came out of that. And then I already said I was really excited for them to jump off a building, and it ended up being them playing video games. So overall, the highlight for me was completely the silent disco challenge, and then at the end, like I said, was complete. It was completely meaningless with the zip line. So out of all of those tasks, I really only liked one of them.
Yeah, see, I didn't like the roadblock very much in the second one, and then the detour. Let's get into the second one. Yeah, we'll talk about them. I'm just saying, like I have like a lot of takes on these. That
before we get to the second one, I promised everyone I would report on the irrigation wheel from two episodes ago. So I didn't do a ton of research. Context? Did you watch the episode?
She didn't.
You didn't even watch that?
I love you guys.
Very casual.
I mean, Amazing Race episode.
I'm an amazing casual. I got to live up to being a casual.
Wait, so you did, I mean, I understand if you didn't listen to us, but you didn't even watch the show?
No. I've been busy.
Was this addressed earlier or did I just miss it?
Nope. I was wondering if you guys are going to figure it out.
I knew that you hadn't because you said that you had to look up who'd been booted or eliminated. And I was like,
no, not who had been eliminated, but I just
thought because that was 2 weeks ago and you were like kind of blurry on it and that you hadn't been like talking about it. So.
Also, yes.
Well, you couldn't be blurry on something that you've never seen.
You're right. It's completely dark. Can I have a 5-second elevator?
So one of the what is that?
It was a detour
or detour. One of them was building an irrigation wheel, And most of it was built, but you had to kind of put these bamboo chutes on like a Ferris wheel type thing. It was over a river, and you would spin the wheel and it would pick up water. And it was just to fill up. The goal was you to fill a bucket so high with water after building it. So the guy had to check and make sure it was correct. So that was like kind of subjective because they had to be angled the right way. And then you had to get it to work and fill it up, which was the objective part. But my question was like, why are they using this wheel to fill up this bucket of water? They could just take the bucket and just dump it. Like you just pick it up and put it in the river and have water. So like, what's the point of this wheel besides it looking cool and being a challenge? Because there's clearly a purpose, but the show never told us what it was for. And so after doing a little bit of research, they put these on, there's a lot of like rivers that run through like the rice paddy regions in these Southeast Asia countries. And so the wheel picks up water, and instead of pouring it just into a bucket that stays still, when the wheel comes up at one of the higher points of the wheel, is when the bamboo shoots are properly angled so that the water goes into a trough that is up high. And then the trough will, at a very slight angle, almost horizontal, but enough so that the water moves, it will then go into your rice fields. And then you're essentially spreading water out to your plants with this one wheel. All you're doing is moving the one wheel, and then it's kind of creating a river, like with the trough above, and then it disperses out. So I'm pretty sure that's how that works. It's pretty cool. You built
that's a cool idea. I like it.
Yeah, all you have to do is spin a wheel, and it gets water to a bunch of your plants. So there we go.
That's important. Thanks, Will. Thanks a lot. You can go now.
That was you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Well, I was just bummed. A lot of times the show will say, people come meet here to do this, or people use this to do that. And then they're like, here is a irrigation wheel.
You know what?
And there's no like, this is like how it works or why it exists.
So here's what I want to talk about real quick. My favorite, now we're going into Uganda, right? We can talk about Uganda now. Now that we got that out of the way, now we don't want to dwell on the irrigation wheel anymore. Like we can get over that.
There's different kinds.
My favorite part about this in Uganda was I have a friend who's from Ghana. And so we were watching Survivor one time, and he happens to walk into the room and he goes, wait, this is like a reality competition? Because like he said, like in Ghana, there's villages where like that's what you do. Like you go and like you get your own food, and like you go and you hunt for things, and you like sleep in things that aren't like houses, like it's like huts and stuff. And I thought it was very interesting how like you see the life in Uganda, and here's Brett and Chris who played Survivor, and like I like not that they're starving, obviously, because it's but just like to see like the difference where it's like they're going and collecting their wood, and this is how they collect their wood, and this is how they go, and this is like everybody carrying the pots on their head and all of this. And it just made me think of that, because he was like, I used to do this all the time, and you guys can't do this for 39 days and are talking about how hard it is. So I just wanted to bring that up. Nana from Ghana, you're welcome.
Nana from Ghana, cool name.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, I would say to Nana that he was talking about Survivor specifically.
Yeah, he was talking specific. He also watched about 14 seconds of it, to be fair.
So he's well versed.
Yeah.
I would just say that Survivor, the hunger and like catching food. I mean, you're not able to like go to a market, or you're not allowed to like leave certain parameters, and then you don't know anyone, and everyone's trying to vote you off. Yeah. So like that's a big part of the challenge.
I think he was talking more about the survival aspect. That was like the first time he'd seen it. And I think he was talking more about the survival aspect. As like, what is this? But I liked Uganda as a location. Go ahead, Alexa.
Nothing important. I think someone said in the chat that this might have been the first time they've ever gone to Uganda, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and they had a really good story with Uganda because Tyler and Corey won the leg. So I thought that the way they implemented the I feel like I froze. Yeah, the way that they implemented. No, I didn't say anything. I stopped talking and just said I think I froze. The way that they implemented like Tyler and Corey's story, like in America into this, and how they win in Uganda, and how like everybody was so positive to them and all that. I thought they did a really good job of that, and they didn't have to like force it, because they end up winning the leg, and like this was really their journey. And like Corey breaking up crying airport, like that's real, So like I thought they did a really good job with that. So I was definitely like, there's definitely more emotional investment in this episode than the first one, which was like a really fun episode. And I felt like this was more of like, if you're going to do a non-elimination, like make it be a more fun episode and then make this one feel like more business-like. And like, I felt like the story of this one was like overcoming the odds and like proving yourself. And I don't know. I just thought that I do think that like they were two very different episodes that just ended up airing back to back.
Yeah. I was surprised that we didn't see Brett involved in any of that conversation with Tyler and Corey.
I just don't think that's Brett's thing.
It's just, yeah. I mean, I'm not like he would have said something super emotional, but just anything, to remind. I mean, I just a little something, but maybe nothing happened. So that's fine also.
It's the same thing though as like when Brett went on Survivor, he always said like he didn't want to be like the gay guy. Like that's not the role he wanted to play. So I think like for Brett, like he doesn't talk about it. Like it's not that he's not open. He just doesn't talk about it necessarily as much as other people do. And so for him, like I think he's just like, I don't think that he would have had like the content that Tyler and Corey clearly had.
Yeah.
Right. No, I meant more from like a comforting, not for him personally, but just to like address what like Corey was feeling. Just that as like a, I liked Uganda. I've spent like a couple hours in Uganda and had a very bad experience. So this is now the highlight of my Uganda, my life so far. This is the most positive I view Uganda is through the Amazing Race, because I had a really.
Do we get to hear this experience or no?
Yeah, I was in Kenya and I was flying home and I had a connecting flight in Uganda. And we got there and the customs was just a mess. And we like everyone on our flight, we were like sequestered in this room and like weren't told what was going on. And then this person came and was like, give me your passports. And like, we were like, where are you going? Like, he's like, we need to process them. And so we like, you don't just hand someone your passport and let them just like walk away. Mm-hmm. And so there was like all these people that were like, no, we're not just handing, that's not how it goes. And it ended up being like this big ordeal. Eventually they like wouldn't let us out of this like area unless we handed over our passports. So we're like, okay, I guess we're going to hand over our passports. And it was pretty tense, but we ended up getting out of Uganda. So
you're here now.
Leave with your passport?
Yes, but they had them. I don't know. They probably had them for like an hour or something, and we were during the hour like, well, what the hell is going on?
That's crazy.
Because usually you go to a desk, they can view it, enter it, but they had to like take it somewhere where I don't know.
Usually in your
really just I don't know.
Well, thanks for that, Will. Way to be a bummer on the podcast.
Not a bummer, because now I love Uganda, because I really like this episode.
You got to go the next time you go. You got to be under like production of Amazing Race, so that like you don't have to have that problem happen.
Yeah,
that's true. That's what it is.
I love how we started with something that was actually not just go somewhere and get.
It was a thing. It was like a really fun thing.
It's like, why don't they do this every? And they're like, this is why I just like this episode so much more. It seemed like everything had meaning. This fit, and like this looked like. I mean, they were in a pretty big city then. This seemed to be like a pretty important monument, and it was this pretty. I mean, just count the steps. Super simple, but you have someone like Chris and Brett who don't read the clue fully, and then just go up to the top.
No, they didn't even go to the clue box. That was the problem. They just
right. They didn't even have the clue. Yeah. They just went there because they saw
the clues.
Yeah.
So I thought this, and then you have teams like not getting it, missing it by one. You have Tyler and Corey thinking they had heard it already. And again, it's race to the top and get the clue, but you need to do something along the way. I love this. I don't know why we have to have the monk thing from a couple episodes ago. I don't know why we have to have the Ferrari and dates and teeth thing, or just give me something like this every episode.
I agree. And I loved that they had to count and not just climb it. And 272 steps, like that's exhausting. Like, especially when you've been like running around doing everything you're doing anyway. So like what my favorite part of both episodes was actually Rachel and Alyssa changing their number. I thought that was just so cool how like we saw their thought process of we got 271. Now we're up the second time. Well, it can't be that one because it's already there. Write down 270 and then being like, wait, I think we're wrong. It's got to be 272. Like, I just thought that was really cool because we saw them be wrong and then be right. after being wrong. And like, you knew that if they had to do it a third time, they would have just been like dead. Because that's exhausting. I mean, that's not easy to do for anybody, let alone when you're like going through what they're going through in these moments and like this intense situation.
And they have a just brutal speed bump ahead.
I hate it.
That was tough to watch.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, that was really
but at
hard.
the time we didn't know what the speed bump was. So it was like, man, they're like falling behind already and they have an extra thing to do.
Yeah. And then we end up doing the roadblock before the detour. So the roadblock ends up being the Rolex thing. The reason I didn't like this one is it felt a lot like the one they did a couple episodes ago where they just did the fish. And it was like in a market and you have to find stuff and you have to cook it and like, or like prepare it or whatever. And like, to me, like, that's not exciting to watch. Cause like, I don't want to watch somebody cook. Like, I'll watch like Diners, Drive-Ins and Dives and have Guy Fieri, Hollywood Walk of Fame, Guy Fieri, tell me everything he needs to tell me about like how this man is making this food. And like, that's cool. But then I get to watch like Guy Fieri eat it and like, tell me how great it is. And I can be like, wow, I could go there one day. But this was just kind of like a bunch of different people, like, grating like onions and then chopping tomatoes and rolling something. I was like, all right, like that's not that exciting to me. So that's why like this one wasn't all that great. And like watching Janelle just like mess it up was just brutal. Like it's just like,
again,
oh my God.
I completely disagree with you. I really like this one.
You would.
I know you mentioned the fish market one from like the second episode or whatever, where you had to build the like fish wrap. This is the first time we've actually seen them cook or actually like make something that someone would eat. I like it because we're learning about food from a different country that we would know nothing about. I love the Rolex kind of play on words and how that messed with at least one person. I thought that was really funny. And yeah, you don't want someone to get like an hour and a half behind, but hey, if that's how it happens, that's how it happens. Like everyone else figured it out. I really liked how there were audiences around them laughing at them as they cook. I always like that. I always like when you see people from the country, local people laughing at these Americans trying to do these things.
What are these crazy people doing?
Yeah, exactly. And even though it's like, yeah, they're making this rolled up egg thing, I still think it was fun. And it was actually one where they can all be next to each other and they're all racing where they're not waiting in line, which I tend to like the ones where they don't wait in line just because they can interact a little bit more. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than running around getting eggs because, again, like I said, the eggs thing, you were just running around getting, that's it. Like there was nothing to it. You couldn't really mess up unless, crap, I don't have an egg. Where this, you saw someone's falling apart. We saw
somebody did it wrong. Leo or Jamal did it wrong.
Yeah, they did it
Floyd
wrong.
dropped it and then made it anyway.
Dropped it and then picked it up. It was just more interesting. And again, this was like actually a food that they would eat. I love the pun Rolex. So I like this one.
I guess this goes to the fact that I've seen more episodes of The Amazing Race than you. They do this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just so unexciting. It's like, imagine like watching an episode, the first episode of Survivor you ever watch, like the first season you ever watch, they finally get to an individual immunity challenge and it's like a ball on a platter thing. And it's like, will it fall off? And you're like, wow, that's a pretty cool idea for a challenge. And I'm sitting here like, I've seen it 9,000 times. It's the first time you've seen it this season. But I feel like I've seen it so many times. And like, because I already got the fish market thing earlier in the season, I'm like, just another variation. I've seen this, like, they always go to like markets in these types of countries. And that's just what it always feels like every time. So to me, it's like, I get they want the chaos, but it's just not as exciting to me now because I've seen it so many times.
That's fair.
Yeah. Alexa, anything? Or did you not watch this episode?
No, I didn't watch it. I'm just here to listen to you guys talk.
You're just here.
No, I like I don't know. As someone who really enjoys cooking shows and like you said, like the chaos is really cool to capture. Like that's really fun. And that's something that it's not that it's relatable, but it's like, it's something where you can put yourself in the situation and be like, oh, this should be easy. I'm making an omelet, but how are they making this so much more extreme? Mm-hmm. I've also watched this happen once. So that's certain, if this happens next week, I can certainly see how that would wear off. How like
it looked pretty good. Like that looked like a nice,
it looked
it's a street food. It's some veggies, some eggs, and like a tortilla type of thing.
Yeah, it looked yummy.
It looks good. I like it.
Yeah,
I would eat it for sure.
Cool too, because that's kind of a cool like breaking the wall that I like to say. Like all the locals are being like, "What are these absolute psychos doing?"
Yeah. And then they went from here to this really isn't so much the show's fault. It's just because Janelle and Brittany were so far behind. But this next, the detour itself didn't feel all that important to this episode. I mean, even like when they did like the salty thing, I forget what it was called, salty something. It didn't even feel like it was just like such a quick thing of like Rachel and Alyssa doing it. Cause like we picked a mom and we're moms. So we like whatever. And like, but it was like such a short thing. And like, we didn't even really see people like building up their bases when they were doing the wood. Really all it did was serve as like a character building moment from Colin. Cause he was like a season 5 Colin. Wow. We would have had problems, but now I can reflect and like all that. That's like really all it served because there was no drama to it. It's like, yeah, we still want to know like who's going to get first place, I guess. But knowing that none of these teams were going to be eliminated, or at least like that's what I'm thinking because I didn't really know what a head-to-head entailed. It just wasn't all that dramatic for me. It was just kind of like balance a bicycle and try not to drop wood. Okay.
Well, I disagree. I kind of agree with you, but I think you're right because they weren't all that exciting either one. The wood one I did think was pretty good, but we barely saw anything of the other one. Mm-hmm. But that didn't matter because that wasn't the focus. The focus was going to be into this head-to-head. And even if you weren't a fan of these, you didn't have to see much of them. So I think that was better. I think we got, and like I already said at the top of this episode, I really liked the head-to-head. I think that was interesting. We hadn't seen it before. So to get an extra challenge and one that I really liked, so sure, yeah, the fish thing, I don't even know what it looked like the local.
I don't even know what they were doing.
Yeah, I don't know what they were doing. It looked like the local was doing the whole thing for them. But the wood thing had some great moments with the bikes and then when Colin and Christy are like, are we good? And then she holds up the stick. I loved how they called her boss lady. I think probably one person called her boss lady and every team kind of just that became her name, boss lady. And they had realized, okay, we got to go back and forth and do all this. So yeah, it wasn't as important, but we didn't see that much of it. So I think that makes up for any lack of significance. And there are so many things we've seen on the show so far that have no significance. At least this did have importance in their placing for the head-to-head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When they were talking it through at the beginning, I was like, oh, that fish one sounds a lot cooler. But the wood stacking one, I didn't find to be like particularly interesting, but that is where we got more of the attention.
Yeah, because like every team did it.
Everyone, yeah.
I think except for Alyssa and Janelle and Brittany.
Yeah, I
think those are the only two teams that didn't do it. And then we talked so much about the head-to-head already. Like, I don't really feel like we need to talk that much more about it. It's also like I wonder. So, like, how long was it? Like, when did they start doing the head-to-head? Did they start doing it right away? Do you think? Like right as soon as two teams got there, like, okay, we're going to bring you out to do the head-to-head. Because what I was thinking is if Janelle and Brittany were as far behind as they were, like Rachel and Alyssa did it, and then they had a lot of time to like not be doing it while they waited for Janelle and Brittany to get there, if that was the case. And I think it almost hurt Rachel because if you watch it again, they almost like Janelle and Brittany almost beat them. And Brittany wasn't doing well. She was actually doing pretty bad. But it looked like she was gaining on Rachel because like Rachel was moving really slow. And Brittany just like, she kind of got like stuck in one of those, like, I don't know which one to grab. And she just like stood there, which you can never do in these types of things. But I wonder like how long Rachel and Alyssa had to wait between turns. Because I think that might have almost cost them a spot in the race.
I imagine, like I was saying, there's probably a pretty good reset on these. They only bring, like, once you finish it, you probably have to go stand with the other team, and they have to reset the whole course, like, to the starting position, and other teams are coming in. But I don't know. I don't know if there's all that much influence. I think anyone who's watching the NBA playoffs, this is always an argument that comes up, or even any playoffs, really. It's the rest versus rust argument. The Warriors just swept the Blazers. Are they going to be well rested or are they going to be rusty? And if they play well, they're well rested. And if they don't play well, they're rusty. So I think whether they have to, Rachel and Alyssa, they're kind of forgetting what it was. Like, yeah, that can be a disadvantage. Or do they remember exactly what it was and they're thinking how to do the whole thing? And they have like an hour to think, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how it was set up. Or just think about strategies. Or they feel like I can see either one being helpful or hurtful. So I don't really think it has much significance.
Yeah.
And just doing it once and seeing it, every team no team beat another team that when it was their first drop.
Nope.
Every team that had done it already was successful. So again, I'm more than okay with this roadblock or this head-to-head because it didn't change the placing at all. And even if it did, it probably wouldn't have caused someone to go home. And if it did cause someone to go home, that's really exciting. Someone who loses 3 times in a row when everyone else was able to do it on their second try.
Somebody loses third. Did you say somebody loses third, Will? Is that what you said? Somebody loses third and then they win? Wait, what? Wait, hold on. What are we talking about? Okay.
They lose 3 times in a row and lose.
I'm making a Survivor reference.
Making a reference.
Why I'm like, maybe you don't want to change the dynamics so much. But anyway, no, I mean, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, how the most important question that we can even ask, there's now 7 teams left. I think Christy who said it? Somebody said, yeah, Christy, if you're still in the game on leg 6, you're an amazing race team now. Now there's 7 teams left. How do we feel about Chris and Brett? Where are they going to go? What are we thinking?
They're still kicking. They're doing better than I expected. I think in the grand scheme of the Survivor teams, I knew that they were going to be the ones that had the most longevity. But they're doing great. They're both like pretty good at it, but also like entertaining.
Will?
I love watching them. I think we talked about them. We talk about them every episode, but we really talked about their chances in an earlier episode, and we kind of landed on their skill sets are so similar. Like they both are able to do things. Like when there's a task they can do, they'll both knock it out of the park, and that's why we see them get what they get 3rd last week, or
they got 2nd last week and 2nd in the first leg this week.
So and if they can knock it out, but if it's just something they can't do, they don't have one person. Okay, you're good at like this musical stuff. I'm more good at the heavy lifting. It's like no, they're both into heavy lifting. And they can't dance. They can't sing. So and then where Becca and Floyd, they seem to be super physical and super into the artsy fartsy stuff. So that's where it's like eventually that's going to catch up to them. I hope it doesn't in the next episode.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think my biggest takeaway from Chris and Brett is they'll be fine next week because Rachel and Alyssa are there. Like Rachel and Alyssa are the next team eliminated. She's like, I'm going to make it
terrible.
I'm going to make it to leg 12. No, you're not. You're the next team eliminated.
If they don't get, I'm starting to get frustrated. But I mean, like I said, I was a fan, and you even said you're done. Like you've seen it all already.
I've seen it. I'm done. I'm over it. I don't need to watch any more of Rachel on this Amazing Race. Like she reminds me, and like I mean this lovingly, she reminds me of Abby Maria, where it's like give me like the first 4 episodes of Abby Maria in Cambodia, and then get her voted out, and it's amazing. But once you have like 10 episodes of Abby Maria, I'm done. I don't need that. So that's kind of how I feel with Rachel right here.
She could have been more of a Wendy.
More of a Wendy. Yeah, I guess. True. But she's going, like, I think they have to go next. And then after that, I have no idea. Because I think all 6 of the other teams are very even in one way or another. Like Chris and Brett, they have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. We've seen them finish last in a leg and survive because it's not an elimination leg. Well, 2 of us have seen that happen. We have Leo and Jamal who like started off great and like since then have not been good at all. Colin and Christy, like they seem like they're the most level team. Nicole and Victor, like I like what they're doing, but like I'm sure like there's certain times like they were finishing second like every time and now they're not. I mean, they're still up there. Tyler and Corey are really coming into their own right now. And who's the team that I'm missing?
Colin and Christy.
I said Colin and Christy.
I said them.
I said Colin. I'm missing one team. Who am I missing?
Brett and Chris.
I'm not missing Brett and Chris. Becca and Floyd. How am I missing Team Fun?
Oh, they're great.
Team Fun is like great, but they've also had legs where it's like we finished 8th place out of 10 or something like that. So I don't know. I feel like it's really even after next week. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting. That's when the race heats up.
I agree with Christy if Rachel and Alyssa are gone.
I agree.
How many?
Once that happens,
How often does it happen where like one duo completely wipes the floor with everyone and gets like 1st or 2nd place every time? I can't imagine it's super likely. Yeah,
it's not often. Yeah, because it's just like there's too many random things that can happen. Like you get in a bad taxi. I mean, that's what happened. Andy and Tommy, they're my boys, and that's what happened to them. Andy and Tommy, they dominated the entire time. And in final 4 leg, about to go to the final 3, they got in a bad taxi. The other people, they got in taxis that just followed each other, and that was that.
Another season ruined by Phil.
Look, you're casual. You shouldn't care.
I know.
You don't care. Alexa's reading the Wikipedia page for this episode that we just watched right now.
Do people ever storm out of these taxis? I mean, it's like, especially when you like that big frame building, it was in sight. And I get it if you're like on a freeway, you can't just like hop out. But if you're, you know what, like I'm just gonna go on foot. And I feel like more teams need to bail on their bad taxi drivers.
Yeah, it does happen sometimes. It used to happen, I think, a lot more frequently in older seasons. Now I don't know, like, if like they force them to kind of stay in or like what the deal is.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I feel like they probably make them stay in it because it's like good TV, but that must suck because then you lose.
Yeah, and the whole paying thing, like I don't know how it works, to be completely honest. Sorry, Will. I don't know.
I'm just saying, I would. If my taxi driver sucks, I'm like, yo, here's $5. I'm out.
That's what I was thinking of. Gamer Girl coming up clutch here. Dave and Rachel, they were ridiculous. They won 8 legs.
Damn.
They were so good. They were like army couple. Like they were ridiculous.
Yeah. They're good at everything.
Yeah, they were so good. But yeah. Anyway, do we have anything else, or shall we move on and tease up everybody for what could possibly be happening Monday at 8 p.m.?
Tease away, Phil.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, all I'm going to say is this is the end of this episode, and we'll be back on Wednesday. But Alexa and I are about to do our $10 patron. And then on Monday, we believe at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have our first Edge of Extinction player coming on our podcast. We won't say who it is.
2 minutes later.
Yeah, I'm keeping it cool as much as I can. And we will have them on Monday night. It's like 99% confirmed. So everybody gets stoked for that. And Alexa, now you can actually do your real closing.
Is that Will? Should I have you take us home? Who's been doing it while I've been gone?
Oh, we've just been butchering it.
Oh, so in that case,
yeah.
Phil and I will be live right after this for our perspective podcast. Talking about the perceptions, perspectives for our Metamorphosis podcast. So if anyone's a $10 patron, stay tuned for that. We'll be uploading that later tonight. If you're not a $10 patron and want to hear Phil and I talk about the future of Survivor and what we think is going to happen, become a $10 patron today. If you want to spend a little less and become a $5 patron and hear a Q&A podcast, or be a $1 patron and join our Facebook group, you're obviously welcome to do that. Go to patreon.com/Survivor Specialists. In the meantime, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We have the same name throughout. Listen to us on iTunes. Hit subscribe on YouTube. We're almost at 4,900 subscribers, which is insane. So keep hitting that subscribe button. We will probably be back Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We won't like fully confirm that yet, but we're hoping that this will be the first interview of many for Edge of Extinction.
It's as confirmed as it can be, but you guys don't get names yet, especially not on the Amazing Race casuals.
Yeah, we're you couldn't tell we're casuals, and by we I mean
I really want the 5,000th subscriber to be like just an Amazing Race fan.
That would be great.
I'm here for your Amazing Race content.
It's that.
If you're just listening for Amazing Race, just subscribe anyway, because that's really funny.
Yeah, the Amazing. Also subscribe to we're just the Amazing Casuals, which I love, by the way. I thought that was very funny. You guys did that.
Yeah, we don't actually have a page though, so it's on the.
Someone in the comments suggested it. It wasn't even us. We're not that funny. We couldn't have come up with that.
We didn't come up with Survivor Specialists either. Jimmy O'Connor, never forget.
Jimmy O. Okay. Wow, we are way less creative than I thought we were. All right, so
prop bet game.
We'll be back.
Prop bet game. That was Will.
That was good, Will. I like the prop bet game. Yeah, we'll be back later. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, I'm gonna hit stop.